Welcome to the H series of webinars. This webinar series is aimed at new and aspiring sheep producers to give them a step up into the Queensland sheep industry. This webinar is part 4 of the series and is titled Herding Foundations. It explores the basics of working sheep in an uncontrolled environment and how working dogs can be used to move sheep efficiently and effectively. This webinar was delivered by renowned stock handler and dog trainer Neil McDonald on the 9th of July 2020. This is clip 7 of 8 and covers the basic tools required to start a working dog.
So on to the dogs. And once again, this is a herding foundations. So we've got to go right back to basics. This is the number one problem, is people leave dogs off the chain. It's what I call Gold Coasting. So it will never work for you with with dogs. The first dog you ever have probably lives on the veranda, but when you get a second one is when they go off hunting. So what you need is a dog on a chain like that, where it's got plenty of shade, a real good hut to live in, a bowl of water on the right, and real good clean sand. And that's one of my dogs at home. And I've got a garden rake that I walk around with. And every time there's dog droppings, they get raked way out to Billio. So there's always clean sand there. And also by walking around raking with the rake, they get to see the rake in your hands, which is a really important tool when it comes to training them, which we can get onto in a minute. Whereas even the last school the other day, some dogs didn't want to work because they were scared of the rake. Well, if they'd seen plenty more of it. So super important to have dogs tied up 100% of the time, or in a cage like that 100% of the time, unless you're in attendance with them. So it's because dogs are left off the chain. That's why chooks are killed. That's why dogs go away and work weaners and put them through a fence. That's why sheep are killed. That's why the insuranceman gets bitten. That's probably not such a big problem. That's why bitches get illegitimately in pup. And that's why dogs get really lazy and have slack attacks, is because people leave them off the chain unattended. It's fine if you've got them off the chain, if you're active with them, as in giving them a run on the bike, or even if you're walking down a fence line, putting on electric clips. It's fine if the dog's with you, but there's never should be a time where you go in to make a phone call and to leave your dogs off the chain. It's probably like going inside and leaving a toddler on the lawn with an unfenced swimming pool. It's something I wouldn't do. And it's exactly the same with these dogs. The number one ruination of dogs and this concept is the fact that people leave them off the chain unattended. The next one is, if you want this to be successful for you, you'll need dogs that have got natural instinct. You can see these two dogs are studying their stock and their tails are down. A lot of dogs, if they get it, not all dogs, but a lot of dogs that run around with their tail in the air like an aerial or a flag actually have air in their heads. They're just chasing sheep or frolicking, whereas generally if a dog's got its tail down, there is odd exceptions, that means that they're studying their mob and they're working them like a scientist on a horse instead of a soccer hooligan. So you've got to have the right instinct in your dogs. Some people in shearing sheds might want a little bit more razzmatazz where they run over their backs and bark. Someone with a pine forest might want a sneakier dog that goes around silently. So you really need to work out what your type of work is and get the appropriate dogs. That's second on the list to success, I'll call it. The next one is, you can see it there, you can buy them in a hardware shop. They're called an invisible rope. And this is a major secret, is when you've got a invisible rope on a dog, that means you've got a real good connection, you've got a rapport, you've got a bond. And Helen's put the word Bluetooth up there. And a lot of people just don't know how to get that bond. But if you call it a Bluetooth, they can understand it perfectly, because if you haven't got the Bluetooth on, it's not going to play the music. And that's super important to have companionship and that working. If your dogs aren't switched on to you like that and they're not your companions, it's not going to work for you. That's very simple. I believe you need a cage on the back of your ute like that, so that you can take dogs somewhere. If you strike it where there's no shade, they can get shade in there. If it's raining, they get protection. You can see the vehicle on the right, that's Helen's ute. Those sides come off, the little doors for muster and goats, so that you can put the goats in there without the rest of them coming out. And you'll see probably with the next slide, that's my ute at home without the canopy. And that's all right for tootling around the place. But if you're going somewhere on the highway at 120 k's an hour, I would still worry about having those dogs on those chains in case a snap hook breaks, a collar breaks. It's really good to have that one where the dogs are actually still in a cage so that no harm can come to them. The next one is, you can see that red arrows up on the top of the page. They're little short chains that we've got strategically placed around the yards everywhere, where those chains are far enough apart that two dogs can't hang and tangle and they can't go over a fence. So if you get to the yard, you've got a young dog and it's getting a bit hot and bothered, not thinking straight, you can straight away go, you know there's chains there, and you can go and hook it up. It's about 1 metre from the trough. You can put a water bowl there. There's a lot of dogs, and especially in the cattle game, the dogs bring the cattle to the yards, and then the dogs get hunted and chased from the yards. You can just about bet your bottom dollar the agent turns up, the dog runs in under the car and is run over. And that's another real reason why we need dogs tied up when we're not using them. I've heard of hundreds of dogs getting run over, and I've never heard of a kennel getting flattened. So if you're going to train them, the main thing you do is keep them alive.
Thank you for watching this short clip. For more information, please visit www.leadingsheep.com.au.